to another Sci-Fi Fantasy Saturday. And today, I have a surprise. I'm going back to one of my favorites, Nemo's War. This is an expansion to Nemo's War. This is Journey's End expansion. Now, Nemo's War originally came out as a Victory Point Games bagged game. If you're not familiar with the Victory Point Games, they were a small game company, and it was their early days were just a little bit above kind of do-it-yourself or print and play. And it was actually better than that, but not a lot. And they got better over time, but eventually, I think a lot of their game designs either got bought out or they just kind of went out of business. I don't even know if they're still around, but there are some companies that are doing several of their designs. Worthington does a lot of their States of Siege type games, and GMT has done some of their Napoleon 20 and some of those games. So Nemo's War was, as you can see right here, Victory Point Games. This was done in a very nice package. This was I believe the second edition that came out, and is very nicely produced, and is an excellent game in my opinion. In fact, it's in my top, definitely top 10, possibly, definitely top 5, and I might have to do a Kilroy's Key 3 on this one, because it's one of my favorite solitaire games. There's a lot going on here, and has had a couple of expansions, but they were really just card expansions, just minor expansions that added, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 different cards to the mix, some new kind of equipment for the Nautilus, and some new events and stuff like that. This, though, goes into adds a lot more than just that. And so with that, let's get in here and take a look at what you get inside this expansion. This was, I kind of let this go for a long time. I didn't really know about this expansion. I followed up on the other two. And so this one's, I think, been out for quite some time, and I just never took the time to see what it was all about. But then I now have found it. So here we go. We're going to get, this is called Between Voyages Guide. Interesting. Need to see what that is about. Oop, I'm going to fall off here. Let's move this out of the way here. And then we have a new game rules. And I think what this does is this is updating the rules that are in the second edition and adding, I guess, some new content to it. Or maybe there was some errata or some FAQ over time. But you can see this relatively thick set of rules here. The game is not that complicated. It's a solitaire game, so you can play it. You can play with more than one person. In fact, there's rules in this to play it with a group. But to me, it was originally kind of set out to be a solitaire game, and it still, to me, plays best as a solitaire game. Although there's a lot of components, I tend to solitaire games that get a little overblown and have a lot of setup time and a lot of different components tend not to get to the table as much. And because when you're wanting to play something solitaire, you're not wanting to spend hours of setting stuff up or reading rules. This one is not quite that involved, but still there's a little bit of setup and going back through the rules again. Now, I don't know what all the differences are between this rules and the rules that are in here, but I'm sure they lay it out for you. Looks like this is 39 pages. It's full color. A lot of this is appendix in the back here. And, and not all of it is just straight text. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the margins that kind of help explain, or notes or optional type stuff that goes on here. They just kind of have a set out to the side to kind of give you a little bit more detail on what's going on. If you're not familiar with Nemo's War, what you're doing in Nemo's War, you're Captain Nemo, and there's different versions of Captain Nemo. There's there's the kind of the pirate Captain Nemo, and then there's the fighting capitalist, the rebel Captain Nemo, and there's all these different traits that you can take on, and that's going to change, what your victory conditions are or what scores points in the game. But it comes somewhat close to a sandbox game because you can do different things in the game, and based on which Captain Nemo you're playing, you're going to try to do different things. Whether it's going to be exploring or discovering stuff, or just taking out other ships, or trying to incite rebellion across the globe, or what have you. There's a lot of different versions of Nemo you can play, and I think you get a new one in here. In fact, I think that is one right there. So that is, you get a set of counters here in here. Nice, good, thick counters. And so this is World Order. So this is your World Order Captain Nemo. And so he's going to get bonuses, and there's a place on the board where you set this so you know what this modifies. But this gives you plus or minus modifiers, or even multiples, depending of what it lines up against on what you're doing for that type of Captain Nemo. And and you got a piracy, so you get two here. So you get World Order and you get piracy. So a couple of new traits for Captain Nemo that really definitely changes the game, because you're going to be focusing on different things that you're going for. You're going to have adventures. There's places you're going to go to on the board, and you'll uncover some of these different tokens that are out there. And there's all kinds of new tokens we have here that you can see. And there are some, these are like collecting the gems. And then we have, so we got climate, coral reefs, and Greenland. And these look like traits here, possibly. And you get a new crew member. There is, so if you lose that crew, you defeat here. This looks like this is a new crew member here. But you have a crew of the Nautilus, and that's going to keep track of managing your crew is important as well during the game. Let's see if there's a place where you can see. Like here's the board. I guess I could pull the board out of the other one, but and these are all the positions on the world, and there's going to be different ships that pop up there that you can either take out or fight. There's warships, and then there are non-warships. That you can take out and then use the scrap for resources to build up the Nautilus. Or you can take on these warships, and you might get bonus points for the warships depending on what style of or motive, they call them motives here, what motive that you're playing for Nemo. And then this is where you keep track of the different aspects of the Nautilus, and if you exceed your limits on this, then again you can lose. There's a lot of ways. It's what typical solitaire game. A lot of ways to lose, a lot of ways to win, and it's kind of an open feel to it. There are adventure cards, and so there's going to be some new adventure cards you get in here. Get a couple baggies. So there's going to be some new adventure cards that you get in here. That's part of this narrative. This is very much a narrative-driven solitaire game. These action cards are kind of driving the story forward. How you're managing your crew is driving the story forward. How you're playing out Nemo's motivation is driving the story forward. And so there's a lot going on here. And there's a lot of events or interactions that you're taking place, and you're going to be using some of your crew's abilities or the ship's abilities to modify roles and to try to, take out, try to succeed in your interactions. So here's some more motive titles here. You've got these were in the original: War, Explore, Anti-Imperialism, and Science. So again, each one of those motives is going to kind of set the stage for how you're going to try to achieve victory in that game. And like, just taking one thing might be to take out warships, and so you're going to get points for the warships, but then you're going to need to beef up the Nautilus to take on the warships. You got to put some extra armor or some fighting capability. Here's an example of some of the events or interactions here. And it will give you some narrative, and it'll tell you what you need to do to try to succeed against that. You might have a pass or fail, and so you might have different, ways to pass it, or you might have different things that happen when you fail. And this is like the test right here. So again, it very much is a narrative-driven story, almost story, not paragraphed, driven. That you're not going to turn to a storybook and read paragraphs, but the cards have some text on it, and the tests are different, and you really are kind of building up a story of how you're going along Captain Nemo's journeys in here. So that's the rule booklet. I don't know what this thing is here, this Between Voyages. So this is a new book. I don't recall this being in the original. So and this might be, and there was an epilogue in the original that depending on what motive you picked, then you'll read how you did based on points, and it'll tell you if you won or not, and they'll give you what happened. So I guess they have some new epilogues in this book. That's kind of your end game, and again, that kind of fits in with the story part of it, or the narrative part of it. You're going to have an end, kind of saying what happened. How did you do in that? In that respect. But a lot of it is you're just trying to beat a score, but it does have some story placement at the end there. So I don't know what, in fact, if this is just, I really don't know what this is. Between Voyages features the game's setup instructions, in-game scoring, and epilogues for each motive, plus variant content for hardy groups of players seeking a non-solitaire experience of Nemo's War. So, yeah, I need to read up and see what that book, but that's a pretty good sized book too, of full color and 31 pages, almost as much as the new rule book here. You're going to get some new minis here. The other game, the ships were represented by counters, but now we have a couple of plastic minis here. I've got a blue ship and a green ship. And I'll end up putting all this into I'll try to put it all back into this box here. There's a deluxe version of this. I have the second edition, but there's like a deluxe second edition that I think combined all the expansions, including maybe this expansion in there as well. So I didn't need to get that because I already had a couple of the expansions and this. So this right here is I think this is just tell you what your actions are. It was normally, like you see right here, I think it's normally a token or a counter. Now you've got a little wooden bit there. Then you get some cards here that come with this. So, so this is definitely expansion. No standalone is this is not meant to be standalone. So you need to have really need to have the second edition. I don't think this really fits well with the old bagged Victory Point, original Victory Point Games version. But so you get a bunch of new cards here. This is a versus card here. Not sure. I have to read up on that. Here's some more Nautilus upgrades. You can constantly upgrading your ship during this. Here's map room. Here's war room. And here's reinforced armor. And again, doing these will be dependent upon, or we're trying to do these, or trying to add these on to the Nautilus. Depends on kind of what motive you're going for. I mean, the war room more room and reinforced armor might be something if you're going for the more militant motive. Here's some new adventures here. The rest of these is a deck of adventures. And as you can see here, they kind of tell you. You have a little bit of narrative on it. It tells you when to keep it, and then what it does at the game's end. It might, you might have a bonus or a scoring bonus at game's end. Here, this one's a test. What you have to exceed that, and then this is what happens if you pass, and this is what happens if you lose. Here's Loch Ness right there, and again, this is a test, and it's going to have any of the symbols that are necessary to tell you about what you gain, and sometimes collecting these during the game is part of one of your victory conditions as well. So, as I said, there's a lot of variety in here, and there's a lot, and again, this is to me where some of the narrative driven aspect of the game comes in. So it's not a true sandbox game, but there's so many different things to do in this game, especially depending on which motive you pick or get assigned to you. I think there might be a random way of doing it as well, that there's just a lot of gameplay here. And so I've always really enjoyed playing this game. The only reason I don't get this game to the table more is because there is a little bit of setup. You've got a lot of counters and a board. Well, in fact, let's just pop in here. Might as well take a sneak peek. I just have everything stored in this box here. And these were the expansion packs. There was 2 different expansion packs that just kind of gave you some cards. And they were like in a like a collector, like a Pokemon or Magic the Gathering kind of card pack, and this came in there with it. Here's your game rules, but we got a new rule book here. Here's the book of epilogues, so that's just that kind of that end condition of how you did. Here's the board, and then I've got everything kind of done in my adventure cards. Here's the Nautilus itself, and then everything's in baggies. In here, so there's quite a bit of counters in here. I've got them somewhat sorted by the right bag, so the setup is not that long for me. But here's some of the different motives that we were talking about here: war, anti-imperialism, humanist, then adventure, explorer, and scientist, and now we've got world order and piracy. So you've got some new motives that go in with this game here. Then we have, these are all upgrades to the Nautilus here. And I might have to rearrange how I do some stuff, which, there's tons of different upgrades to, modify the Nautilus. And that's kind of a sandbox thing as well. I mean, you're going to customize your ship to try to fit with the motive for the victory conditions that you're trying to accomplish. These are the crew members in there, and some of the tokens that I think are unique to them. As I said, there's a lot in here, and there's not so much in this bag that I don't think I can fit it all back in here. I always like to fit as much as possible in the original box, and I'll figure out a way to do that in this case as well. My adventure cards, I might run out of space for the adventure cards. There's some dead space in here. I think the second edition deluxe had a better insert, but there's some dead space under here that I might end up utilizing, so I can make some more room for other stuff in here. But there you have it. This is, again, one of my top 5, if not top 3, solitaire games. I would say this is non-war game, although there's some combat and the like that goes on in this game, especially depending on what motive you pick or get. But for the most part, this is it's kind of more of an adventure game of sorts. Here's your tracks for your for Nemo, the crew, and the hull. Here's kind of your time track on there. These are the different locations you go to. Over here you have your action success table, whether you're search, rest, repair, refit, or insight. You've got your turn sequence over here, which is always important in a solitaire game. And then here is where you track those motives. So you put that card over here, and the warship rack, warship sunk, non-warship sunk, adventure cards, treasure, liberation, science discovered, and wonders. Can't really read that over here with my light, but wonders seen. So each of the motivations are going to have a different result for those different elements, depending on which motivation you get. There might be plus or minuses or multiples of how these things play out. And this keep track of the the warships that you've encountered, because you might get points on where you engage them and the like. And then there's some sideboards over here for the upgrades and the like. So anyway, that's the board. I can't say enough of this game. I probably should do a playthrough at some point, or maybe an after action or an epilogue, as they call it here, to talk a little bit about this game. Because if you like solitaire games, if you like kind of sandboxy type solitaire games where there's a lot of stuff you can do and explore, and it has a lot of variety in gameplay, then and this theme kind of fits with you, the whole 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea adventure type thing, then I can't recommend Nemo's War enough. And this to me was kind of a kind of collect them all type situation of, more of this is, in my opinion, is always a good thing. So I had to get a little bit more of this. Anyway, that's what I have for you today on Sci-Fi Fantasy Saturday. If you've played Nemo's War, or if you've played this expansion, I'd love to know your thoughts on it. What you think about any of this stuff, as good, bad, or don't need to have. Love to hear any thoughts on that. Anyway, that's what I have for you. Have a good rest of your day. Oh, and by the way, if I didn't mention it, which I think I did though, this is based on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. That is kind of the basis of this game and all of its expansions. And you know what? I picked this up and read this a couple years ago, and it's a little outdated, but it ages okay. It's still somewhat of an interesting book. Anyway, that's what I have for you on this Sci-Fi Fantasy Saturday. Take care. Thanks for watching.